A wild weekend. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report was sent in by Jimmy. When this happened, 2019. The drugs used: cannabis, nicotine, and alcohol. At a dose of roughly a gram of flour, an unknown dosage of a dab, 2 cigarettes, a fourth of a 26 of vodka, and a half 26 of Fireball. The route of administration: smoked for the weed and nicotine, and obviously the alcohol was drunk. The gender: male. Weight: 240 pounds. Age: 18. Height: 6 feet. Prior experience includes alcohol, Adderall, Vyvanse, and bifenton. The set: very chill. And the setting: at a friend's house behind the local rec center. Okay, so this is a pretty cool account where Jimmy first tried cannabis and got drunk as shit the next day. This report itself kind of brought me back to the high school days, even though it doesn't take place at school at all. It just carries this youthful energy, and there's a lot of humorous happenings throughout this. Some of the effects he gets from the weed are classic stoner effects, I would say, that I'm sure you'll get a chuckle from. Then the next day, when they drink, is just ridiculous. I'll just leave it at that. This report does kind of remind me of me, some of the kind of situations I would get into and whatnot. There is some reckless behavior when it comes to the alcohol, so we'll gain some insight of some potential consequences of that and what it's like to go past your limits. But overall, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. This happened during the summer of 2019, and was my first experience with weed. Age 18, dose about a gram of weed and an unknown amount of a dab. The strain for the bud was Nicotine, and the dabs were Death Bubba. Before this point, I had only used alcohol, Adderall, Vyvanse, and bifenton. The day this happened was the day after my 18th birthday. I was hanging out with a few friends of mine, one of which has since taken a dark path in life. Before any of this happened, one of my friends, let's call him Dean, had locked himself out of his house. Locksmithing has interested me since the 10th grade, and I had purchased a set of lockpicks, not knowing that they required a license in my country. Not that I really cared all that much. I had them on me at the time, so we met up with him, and I broke in through the back door so he could go get his stuff for the night. He ended up selling a controller to go buy some dabs. Meanwhile, my other friend and I, who we will call Chris, went to the rec center near Dean's house to wait for him. While we were there, a dealer we were friends with showed up and talked for a bit. He got a call to go to a deal, but had no way of getting to the spot to go sell. So Chris offered his bike in return for a gram. The dealer accepted and rode off to go to the deal. Dean showed up with his girlfriend and the dabs. He and his girl took some hits off a dab pen, while Chris and I smoked a cigarette and played some music while waiting for the dealer to come back. Before the dealer came back, another friend showed up in his car, so we chilled with him as well. We'll call him Brady. We explained why we were there to Brady, and he told us he had a pipe and bong in the car and would let us smoke with them. So we were set. When the dealer came back with his gram, it was pretty clear he wasn't very good at eyeballing. This had to be at least 2 grams. We got into Brady's car, and Chris packed me a bowl from the pipe. Not wanting to smell later, I got out of the car and smoked the bowl. It was really rough on my throat. Didn't taste like much, just burnt. I didn't know that weed takes a while to hit you, so I had Chris load me another bowl, and I smoked it outside as well. Still, not feeling much, I opted for a rip off the bong. Chris loaded one up for me and explained how to use it. It took me a few hits, but I eventually finished it, now feeling a bit of a buzz and a very light body high. Now this is where I should have stopped and just waited to come up, but instead, I told the guys that I was feeling it, but not that much, to which Dean responded, "Oh, I'll fix that." He packed a bit of weed in the bowl of the bong, then put a small piece of the dab in the bowl and covered it with more weed. I smoked the bowl, got back in the car, and everyone else started smoking. Suddenly, the body high hit me like a freight train. I felt stuck in my seat, and it was as if I could feel every vertebrae in my spine becoming heavier. The 5 minutes it took for everyone else to get high felt like forever. I just stared dead ahead, feeling like I was in a cartoon. Nothing had depth. Eventually I said, "This is some Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas kind of shit," which everyone thought was hilarious. Eventually, we all got out of the car, and I noticed that when I turned my head, There was a slight delay in where I was seeing relative to where my eyes were looking, which I thought was pretty cool. Everything was starting to have a slight green hue to it in my vision, and walking felt a little weird, like I was heavy and weightless at the same time. I explained to Brady that Chris and I had no way of getting to Chris's house, so he offered to give us a ride home. The only issue was, we had to get Chris off the ground first. Chris has just taken a tolerance break, and it was clear it was hitting him hard. We told him over and over again that we had to go, but he seemed unable to move at all. I found this really funny for some reason, and busted out in laughter. Brady and Dean turned to me and asked what was so funny. "I don't know," I said between giggles. Eventually Brady walked over to Chris, kicked his leg and yelled, "Chris! Drug dog!" Chris instantly stood up bong upright and ran to get into the car. After that point, we started to drive home, which, looking back at it now, was retarded. We were all cooked, including the driver. My depth perception was completely out the window at this point, and when Brady threw something out of the window, I ducked, thinking it was coming at me. Eventually, we got back to Chris's house and went in. Chris walked straight past his dad and to his room to lay down. I stayed in the living room with his dad and talked for a bit. I'm still not sure how I managed to act sober with him. The cottonmouth has become unbearable at this point, so I drank some iced tea and had a bagel with cream cheese before going into Chris's room to see how he was doing. We demolished 2 boxes of honeycombs and frosted flakes and smoked a cigarette in his room before I went back to watch TV with his dad. When I laid down, I felt incredibly heavy and accepted I wasn't getting off this couch until I was sober. I fell asleep at around 11 and woke up at around 10 the next morning. I left after shaking up with Chris. On my way to the bus stop, I ran into the dealer from the night before, and he decided to chill with me for a bit. We went downtown to see what was going on today, when I got a text that another friend was having a party. We bussed down to his place and found that there was nobody home. It was unbearably hot this day, and I had no clue when he'd be home, so I busted out the lockpicks and let myself in. The dealer and I chilled in the living room and talked for an hour or so before my buddy's mom came home. She was surprisingly chill about the fact that I had broken into her house and told us that my buddy would be home soon. When he came home, he was shocked that I was there. He got a pretty good laugh from his mom explaining how I got in. After eating dinner with him, a few more people showed up, and he left to go get more weed to sell to the people who were there for the party. I decided not to smoke because my lungs hurt from the night before. Instead, I opted to drink. There was a bottle of Fireball and some shitty vodka. I drank a good amount of vodka from the bottle, chasing it with Fireball until eventually one of my friends who came, who we will call Mike, grabbed the bottle and said, "Everyone take a shot, and then Jimmy is finishing the bottle." The bottle was passed around the room and then back to me. I finished the bottle in one gulp and set it down, realizing that I had probably drank way too much. My body became light and euphoria rushed over me. I punched Mike jokingly and then lay down on the floor, feeling amazing. I started texting my girlfriend when suddenly I had the urge to puke. I grabbed the closest empty popcorn bucket and started puking my guts out, filling it probably halfway. Between puking, I kept looking over at the show on TV until I heard a smash behind me. Mike, who had also drank too much and was now blacking out, falling straight into my plastic popcorn bucket and was knee-deep in my puke. At this point, most people started to leave disgusted by this. My friend's mom came and walked him down the stairs, got him to strip down to his boxers, and put his clothes in the wash. We tried to keep him on his side, but as soon as we turned him, he'd turn over onto his back, which was really frustrating, especially while we were drunk. I lay back down on the floor and couldn't find the pizza that I had on a plate beside me before. I was rolling around screaming, "Where is my fucking pizza?" To no avail, I could no longer stand up to go search for it, so I decided to try and get some sleep. Before this night, I had never had a hangover, but this morning was different. I felt extremely sick. Anytime that I ate or drank anything, I threw it up within 2 minutes. I decided to continue doing this to hopefully get the alcohol out of my system. When I was finally feeling somewhat better, I took an ibuprofen and sat down on the couch to watch some TV. Everyone who stayed was still out cold on the floor, and my friend who hosted and his mom were asleep downstairs. At around 3, I decided to finally go home, feeling good enough that I wasn't going to puke again, having put some fluids in me. This weekend served as a great example of knowing your limits. I haven't really messed around with weed much after this, not because I'm scared of it or don't want to, simply due to money and possible drug testing when getting jobs. Overall, it was a really fun experience, but I don't think I'll be doing that much again in the foreseeable future.